Hi, this is Anthony Cornet, and welcome back to your daily dose of dissonance. In 1859, the young composer Johannes Brahms made a ballsy move. He premiered his first major orchestral work, Piano Concerto No. 1, to a highly critical audience. Now, in those days, premiering your first major orchestral work was no light affair. The reception of your first major publicly received work went a long way towards branding you a composer of potential or a hopeless flop. In his first piano concerto, Brahms put forward an emotionally gripping work that he hoped would solidify his stature as a reputable up-and-coming young master. The concerto was one of those pieces where the composer really hoped to make an impact by putting every ounce of who they are into it. In that work, Brahms left everything on the field. Well, turns out the premiere didn't go so well. By the end of the performance, few audience members were clapping and some were even hissing. Keep in mind that in those days, music concerts were more akin to modern-day stand-up comedy routines. If the audience didn't like what they were hearing, they would boo and heckle right back. None of this, "Oh, we better clap, we don't want to hurt the artist's feelings." In the following days, critics ravaged the work, tearing Brahms apart for writing what they perceived to be a huge, disjunct, incoherent work. Brahms performed the work 5 times in his lifetime, and with the exception of one performance, they were all received with overwhelmingly negative reviews. The negative reception of this work, which Brahms put so much of himself into, was something that the young composer never really got over. When you put your heart and soul into something special, and the public utterly decimates it, it changes you as a person. It would be quite some time again before Brahms ever had the courage to put himself out there like that again. In a very real way, Brahms' sense of self-confidence as a composer lived in the painful shadows of that early personal defeat. Now jump ahead a few years and compare this to one of the most critically reviled rock bands of the early 70s, Emerson, Lake, and Palmer. In some ways, I think ELP were born to piss off critics. In their eyes, they could literally do nothing right.
I went to see them, possibly the first ELP gig at somewhere like the Royal Festival Hall. And again, I was almost in tears at the end of it because it was such bollocks.
Although the fans loved them, professionals in the business did not.
At the time, what were the bands that were really big that you despised in 1970?
Emerson, Lake, and Palmer.
So whether you're writing piano concertos in the 19th century or selling out rock stadiums in the 20th, one thing remains constant. Nasty, hurtful criticism is inevitable.
I never saw one good review, actually. They were all, it was always pompous and too grand, too this, too clever.
For those people who dedicate themselves to creative pursuits, where you have to dig deep within yourself to give the world something unique and different, one can expect a flurry of mixed opinions. The real question isn't should you expect criticism, but how are you going to respond to it? Are you going to slowly let it eat away at you day after day, or are you going to pick yourself up and persevere? I would submit to you that if you're going to weather the storm of negative criticism, you need to align your art with your most deepest held feelings and convictions. If what you compose or perform is an extension of what you most profoundly believe to be true, you will at least be able to fall back on your own artistic integrity.
I mean, you can play a fantastic concert and everything goes perfectly well. You play a fantastic solo, and maybe the press criticize it and put it down completely. I mean, that means nothing. It means nothing at all, because I know that how I played then was okay. So therefore, I am my own judge.
The piece I'm about to perform for you today is a vaudeville-inspired song about a man who works as a bouncer at St. Peter's Gate. It's taken from the legendary 1973 masterpiece Brain Salad Surgery, one of the most boundary-pushing albums of that time. Although fans loved it, once again, big surprise, critics despised it. But it didn't matter, because ELP's composer, Keith Emerson, understood what the critics did not. He knew this album dripped with the sort of raw, unabashed authenticity that is bound to attract those with an open mind and an open heart. Later in their career, feeling the relentless pressure to conform to corporate expectations, ELP released Love Beach, an album designed to extricate them from the dirty world of prog and position them squarely as a radio-friendly pop band. Except, that's exactly what didn't happen. Although they tried to appease the will of the critics, still no such luck. And this time, not even their fans approved.
Love Beach was a disaster. Again, the word has to be used.
So what went wrong? Well, put simply, a lack of authenticity. Everyone knew damn well what ELP were up to, and they could see right through the guys. They could see this was an attempt to exchange core musical values for a quick heroin-like hit of mass popularity. ELP were better off writing divisive, over-the-top music like Brain Salad Surgery, where everyone knew it was coming from the heart, than to write commercial music where it was primarily an attempt to finally make critics happy. You see, it's possible to try to give this world exactly what it wants. You can try to be the sort of person the world wants you to be. And to your surprise, you can still be rejected and fail. And in that case, it's really adding insult to injury. Not only was your art rejected by the world, you don't even have your own integrity to fall back on.
Now, you either stay by your guns and keep on doing what you do, or you can buckle. And we buckled, I personally think.
Although being authentic and true to yourself may be painful at times, especially in a world that doesn't quite comprehend, it truly is the lesser of two evils. In reality, there isn't really any other choice. Anyone who denies their true nature is bound to relapse back eventually. I mean, sure, you can hold your breath underwater for a while, but eventually you'll have to come up for air. In exactly the same way, you can kid this world into believing you're something you're not, but eventually you'll crack and simply default right back to who you ultimately are. Brahms' Piano Concerto No. 1 is now revered as a true masterwork of the repertoire, and virtually all contemporary rock critics recognize the importance of Brain Salad Surgery. Now look, I don't know who else would ever draw a parallel between Johannes Brahms and Emerson, Lake and Palmer. The lesson here, though, is to learn that as things change, the more they stay the same. Time has a way of rewarding those who stay committed to their own unique vision, even when they are speaking way ahead of their time. This is Anthony Cornet, and you're listening to Dissonant Radio. If you find content like this engaging, please consider subscribing through the link below. Your support would be greatly appreciated, especially as I get started. For now, this is Anthony Cornet reminding you to take care, live well, and keep it dissonant. Cheers.